It's November 1995. An acclaimed comic book writer, after finding much success in his previous works, is writing what would be his most personal work yet. But its eclectic nature, mixed with the general popularity of comic book market at a low, struggles to find much success and is on the verge of cancellation. The things are looking dire, as even a big name in the industry can only take you so far, and with it being a non-superhero title with a mature tone, it already was against great odds. So what should be done to counter this conundrum? Well, in this case, the answer was magic. Yes, following few issues had letters included at the back with instructions to perform chaos magic. More precisely, a sigil was to be used, and to activate it, one had to masturbate. And thus, the readers collectively took part in this hyper sigil to save the fate of a comic. So what even is a sigil? Is this just some crazy conspiracy theory amongst many at the time, and did it actually work? Well, it's the 90s. The Cold War is just ended. It's a time of great optimism and a sense of relaxation is oozing in the atmosphere. There is no great danger towering above. Sure, here and there people tend to raise eyes on heinous statements by some crazy political leader. But we couldn't really ever escape that, could we? But hey, there's a new Tarantino film around the corner, finishing school, going home to play the new video game on the market, and catching the latest battle in the dark tournament, or just staying up all night courageously through the grace of Are You Afraid of the Dark, or usher your right into the world of Courage the Cowardly Dog that has some strange things going on for a kid's show. Meanwhile, people can't get enough of Nirvana or the cool hip-hop albums coming around at the time. The rate of technological advancements fills us with a great sense of excitement as one's eagerly waiting for what's to come next. Hey, what's this mysterious new dimension that everyone has gotten a hold of suddenly, called the internet? No one really knows what's in there, but it feels super cool and fun. It's still in its infant stages, so everything feels new, with a sense of childlike wonder, when you are so carefree without much to do. Of course, there are some crazy conspiracy theories going around here and there. It finally feels, after all this while, we are at a point in time where one can just be happy about the state of the world. There's a feeling of great optimism about everything, which ultimately brings in its share of anxiety and worry somewhere within our subconscious, like a doomsday clock gleefully ticking in the background. Things feel almost too good in fact, as everyone is collectively headed towards the next millennium. Surely the next best thing from here has to be some kind of utopia, right? The next step for humanity into attaining... Grant? Is that really you? What? Oh my god, I wasn't ready for this. Listen, I'm such a big fan of your work. No, the title isn't clickbaity at all. Yeah, really, I was building this whole lead up so it will eventually tie together. No, I'm not making an analysis on invisibles. To be honest, that seems like too much work. So I thought making a 9-minute video instead would be much easier, carefully choosing certain aspects to connect the 90s zeitgeist with. It's the 90s again. A time of great optimism and a sense of relaxation is everywhere. People still like reading superhero comics now and then, as the new Tim Burton Batman film is right around the corner getting ready to haunt every kid. Meanwhile, DC Comics has just launched an imprint called Vertigo that was formed after the success of titles such as Alan Moore's Swamp Thing and Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns. With seeing such a rising interest in mature comics, DC decided to hire a bunch of British talent on the back of Alan Moore, famously dubbed as the British Invasion, with names such as Neil Gaiman, Peter Milligan, and the topic of this video, Grant Morrison. They all were heavily involved in the success of the imprint, with titles such as The Sandman, Lucifer, Preacher, and Shade the Changing Man. Among them was another title. Shortly after the success of Doom Patrol and Arkham Asylum, Morrison decided to start working on his most personal project yet, The Invisibles. Grant is one of the most iconic writers in the comic book industry. His works are filled with idiosyncratic presentation with a deep love for the comic book medium, while also testing the boundaries of storytelling within the medium. He utilizes every aspect of it better than almost anyone to tell his stories. Stylistically, it has more in common with music, where one has to let go, completely surrender themselves to the melodies of the tunes at play. Instead of trying to make sense of every little thing, the different elements playing at hand create this perfect harmony that connects everything together and attain a wider meaning. Look at the issue 5 of his Animal Man run, titled Coyote Gospel, where a beast from the world of Looney Tunes, after a talk with God, is put in the world of this comic. He is cursed with immortality, fated to bear all sorts of punishment for the betterment of humanity. He begrudgingly accepts it if it means a better world. Upon meeting Animal Man, he tries to tell his story, but of course it is all incoherent to him, and leading into the final panel, we see a brush painting Animal Man, exposing the reality of our main protagonist, of himself being part of another such comical tale. Grant is heavily influenced by the works of people like Robert Anton Wilson and Philip K. Dick. The themes of anarchy, discord, metatextual and postmodern theories often dictate most of his works. He is often interested in exploring the nature of reality, a perception of it, and a purpose in the larger cosmos, questioning the very notion of being, the concepts of time and or change. His works inherently are optimistic in nature, that ultimately trying to find a way for humanity to reach a better, more desirable future. Or did I forgot to mention that he's also a wizard? He is a practitioner of chaos magic, which is a way to manifest ideas and desires into reality. He used this effectively in The Invisibles, which is one giant hypersigil. According to him, he was abducted by aliens during his trip to Kathmandu, and that's where he got all of his ideas to write this series. He allegedly also got sick and was on the verge of dying after putting his character through a long torture sequence in the series, and only after saving him did his sickness go away. The comic takes place in the zeitgeist of the 90s. Through the comic, Grant tries to express his real-life experiences, beliefs, and everything that was going with him during the 6-year run. Time travel, conspiracy theories, drugs, science fiction, fantasy, martial arts, spy thriller, pop culture, among other things you name it. It's all present in it. After all, his idea behind the series was a setting where he could tell any kind of story he wanted that would also make sense in the reality of the world, partly inspired from the Sandman. Through it, his goal not only was to capture the essence of living in the 90s, but also exploring different facets of human condition, how our past and memories affect us, and ultimately wanted it to be a sigil that can have great impact in the world and inspire people. It's the 20s. A time of great disarray and confusion. People are isolated in this age of hyperconnectivity. Some are actors performing a role assigned to them through some abstract sense of reason and taking part in bad faith ideological driven chaos that distorts their perception with negativity. A unique point in time where it feels like one is not viewing the world through history or a possible future, but are rather trapped in the present, unable to even keep up with the sea of information that constantly drowns rationality. A nostalgia of the past seduces us as we long for a simpler time. This overwhelming sense of being amongst the lightning chaos of the world, feeling impossible to keep up with tragedies happening all over the world. Eerily quite often now, that it rightfully fills our conscience with only questions without a prospect of an answer in sight, and the ones that are sitting right beside us are too horrific to even entertain. Selfish, shallow-minded people control the world. The utopia that internet promised has instead greatly divided the world, as we are collectively headed in an abstract future that can take any shape. I think the world presented in The Invisibles weirdly feels much more real now. The exaggerated reality that Grant created feels grounded in the ludicrous one we reside in currently. The protagonist of his series in the first part is Jack Frost, this teenage boy who suddenly finds himself become a part of this crazy world where nothing makes sense, with only questions in plain sight. Thus, he initially chooses to ignore them as he is forced to become an invisible to fight some battle for the betterment of humanity that he barely comprehends. Many other characters throughout the series are also forced to face themselves and the consequences of their actions, and the possibility of if what they had devoted so much time in was even right. When asked what the series was about, this is what Grant had to say. It was about the realization that you can take control of your own life and rewrite it in any way you choose. A great interpretation, though I'm also a believer in the prowess of art having different meanings that can transcend the original vision. And that interpretation right now feels more like a pipe dream, but then the alternative is to defeat. I plan to end this video on a simpler, optimistic note as the series did, but I can't sit here and say to people to just be optimistic and take control of your lives when countless people are being toyed with on whims of some lunatic sitting comfortably at back, and many big figures with a platform who are too self-absorbed to bother about anything but themselves. I guess the least we can do is not forget empathy and not be so selfish that you find your own comfort more important than lives of people, and most would be to change one's approach and find answers through love and do the best that you can do. I would like to conclude by this quote that I'm quite fond of from the series. We made guards and jailers because we felt small and ashamed and alone. We let them try us and judge us, and like sheep to slaughter, we allowed ourselves to be sentenced. See now, our sentence is up. What did came of the sigil? Well, it did work. Think so at least, since the series definitely picked up in sales, and it went on to influence many writers and media like The Matrix, while also being timeless and in some ways feels more relevant now. Also, if like me you are interested in the sigil magic, then I'll just leave this here. Again, thanks for watching the video. I hope you're having a wonderful time and you find answers to any or all conflicts you're going through currently. This was but a humble attempt by a nobody trying to find comfort amongst this mayhem through any semblance of connection I can find on this beautiful and terrifying thing called the internet. And if you liked it, please consider subscribing to my channel for more videos similar to this. If you're curious about Grant Morrison and want to get into his works, then his 25-issue run on Animal Man would be a perfect start. Until next time,